All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the January meeting of the Delaware Astronomical Society. Are there any new members who'd like to introduce yourselves? There's one in here a minute ago.
We already lost
away.
We already lost him last week. Oh, there he is.
Can I say hi? Say hello to you. Okay, cool. Welcome.
Welcome.
Anybody else? All right, cool. I'm gonna flip that back around.
After tonight.
Yeah. All right, so first item on the agenda, we have membership drive. Bob, you want to talk about that?
Yeah,
Flip back around.
sure.
You guys are gonna
We've
get
been in the process of renewing members for a couple months now, and happy to say that we've had 100 renewals so far. So thank you for everybody who has renewed. It goes a long way to making the club work properly. If you got an email from me yesterday, it means that I haven't gotten you renewed yet, and so we want to encourage you to renew and so if you got an email from me, there's a couple different ways you can pay. You can come to this meeting and pay cash or check. You can there's a couple PayPal links, or you can just put it in the mail and mail it to me. But we really appreciate wrapping up the dues collection part of the program, and we'd like you to be a member.
Because I believe officially people are officially lapsed as of pretty soon, right?
We take at the end of this month. Anyone that hasn't paid is no longer an active member.
Right.
Gotcha. I can pay for you right now for a $5 surcharge.
I would reject that.
I have PayPal open right now.
Now you know what your worth is, Terry.
$5.
Not even.
All right, next item, we have the AP SIG. So you want to talk about that?
Okay, so on Saturday, 1 p.m. On Zoom is the next astrophotography special interest group meeting, and Mark Ferrari is going to continue with the presentation he started last month on a road trip he took through the West taking astrophotos. And this time around, he's going to show us wide field photos he took using a Red Cat 51 refractor. Very small, very wide field. So that should be interesting. Then we have our usual astrophoto review from everybody, as well as equipment question and answer period.
Very exciting.
So it's Saturday at 1.
Sounds cool.
Actually, on that topic, Bill, I keep meaning to tell you, but much like, if I don't mention it right away, I'll forget again. I kept meaning to tell you, our June speaker for the main meeting, Nico Carver, is actually going to be coming down in person.
Oh, fantastic.
To give the DAS a talk. I'm assuming he could be routed into maybe doing something on the AP with your AP SIG. I just wanted to give you that heads up. Obviously, we can coordinate between me, you, and Nico, but he is going to be our main DAS speaker for the June meeting.
Right. Okay.
So and we'll be here in person. So that'll be cool.
What's being on Zoom all the time?
What's that?
Well, the thing is, there actually are a lot of people that are far enough away that it's difficult for them to travel. We have several members who live more than an hour away at this point. So, but we still do go live anytime we have an on-site meeting.
Yep.
So, which we've done at Rick Spencer several times. And Dave Hockenberry and your place.
Yep.
So whenever we have the chance to do a on-site meeting, it will be live.
All right, next item on the agenda. You want to tell us about the book club, Mary?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I would like to invite everyone to join us on Thursday, January 26th. At 2:00 in the afternoon, which is a little early for the book club, but we're trying to accommodate our guest, Professor Valerie Shrimplin, who will be joining us to celebrate Sir Christopher Wren's tercentenary. It's called Wren 300, and she will be joining us to discuss her 16-page essay, which she has graciously shared with us, and I have emailed to everyone. If you have not received a copy of Professor Shrimplin's essay on the subject of Christopher Wren as both famous architect and also extremely accomplished astronomer, and how he related his astronomical background into his architectural work, please email me at dasbookclub@gmail.com and I will make certain that you have a copy. Guests are always welcome to the book club meetings. Professor Shrimplin will be joining us to present a PowerPoint presentation first, and then she'll be open to answer questions. In March, on March 30th, we will be meeting to discuss the quiet zone, unraveling the mystery of a town suspended in silence by Stephen Kersey. It's a discussion of Green Bank, West Virginia, and the very special lives that the people in that community live as a result of the scientific research. Robert and I have listened to it, the unabridged version on audio, and there's not a lot of science in it. We were a little disappointed about that, but it's a very fascinating story. And Kersey should be a very good guest. And then in May, we have lined up the authors of a book about Aidan and Marjorie Meinel. And Aidan Meinel had led one of the most extraordinary lives. He was from California and was very well educated, was involved with some incredible secret programs during World War II, and then was involved in the building of some of our major large telescopes. And they had a husband-wife team, which seems to be a thread throughout astronomy history of husband-wife working partnerships. We'll be joined by Alec Pridgeon and James Breckenridge, and a woman who served as Aidan and Marjorie's secretary will also be joining us in May. We've decided to change our format a little bit. We're going to every other month for a major read, and then we'll be fitting in maybe essays, almanacs, magazine reads in the intervening months, maybe poetry. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting next Thursday. Please join Professor Shrimplin.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank
All right.
you.
Next, Jeff, you want to tell us about the dinner meeting?
Yeah, so the DAS board has decided to resurrect our May dinner meeting for 2023 after having to not hold it for 3 years in a row. I'm not going to go into a long, drawn-out. I mean, we've had a lot of new members, so it might be a lot of people who don't know what the dinner meeting is. But simply put, in May, we go off-site to a facility. We usually get a NASA speaker or someone to give a really nice talk, and a very, very nice meal is served. It ends up being a very, very lovely evening. The facility that we've held it at the past couple of years cannot accommodate us this year, scheduling conflict. So I am back to searching for facilities. I sent an email to the groups.io, but just to say it in person. So we are looking for a facility for the third Tuesday in May. A couple of basic requirements. One, we've kind of at the most had about 85 participants. So a venue that's about that size, maybe a little bigger just to have some cushion. It also, because we cook the meal ourselves, the facility has to have a, I don't know the right word, adjective, but a reasonable kitchen. I almost would say a commercial kitchen that we ourselves are allowed to use. A lot of facilities have kitchens, but they're only for like the women's auxiliary or some other things, or maybe caterers to use. But we would want a facility where we ourselves could come in and prepare the meal at their kitchen. We also generally have beer and wine available. So we would like a facility that is tolerant of that. And I think those are the major things. Oh, I mean, cost, we're prepared to pay. Historically, we found facilities that are not terribly expensive. And just for disclosure, I think we paid about $150 for the church that we used the past couple of years. We certainly can pay more, but if it's something that's thousands of dollars, it probably would not be within our budget. If anyone is a member of a church or lives in a community that has a facility or has a similar facility that would meet at least those base requirements that I outlined, please let me know. And, thank you for the people that have already offered up facilities. I will look into them. But we're looking to try to get something secured here pretty quickly, because the next step after getting the facility secured is to then go out and find our speaker. But I don't want to go looking for the speaker until we've got a facility locked up. So really the big thing is, like, if anyone is, most churches, especially the bigger churches, have a facility that would probably work. A lot of retirement communities, 55+ communities have them that sometimes could be used. Anyhow, I put it out to all the members. If you've got something, let me know. Obviously a couple of basic requirements, but at the end of the day, if it seems like it's promising, I'll probably want to go out and visit it and see it myself, just to make sure that the room looks right and the kitchen looks right and all those other things. You can email me. Actually, my email is in the focus rather than read it out to everybody.
Have you thought about Ashland again?
So I'll talk to you about that after the meeting.
Okay.
So, because that could be an option.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, any other announcements that we missed?
So it's May 6th.
Thank you. If that's the third Tuesday.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick.
Any
Hey,
other-
Rob,
Yes,
it's Kathy. Can you hear me?
yes.
I wonder if I could put a plug in for people to get back to me on the survey I sent out for the book club back in December.
Don't remember a survey right now.
I don't remember.
Do you remember a survey?
I think I remember getting it. Yeah. Who was it? Was it sent to only the book club members or the entire club, Kathy?
I thought I followed what Rob had suggested, which was DOS
right.
IO groups.
The groups.io.
Groups that.
Yeah.
I remember
right.
telling her that. I don't remember seeing it. though.
remember seeing it.
Uh-huh.
I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Maybe
Well,
I
let
just
me
forgot.
pull it up real quick.
Well, if everyone could please fill it out and send it back. It's not complicated, it's not long, but it would be very helpful.
Maybe send a reminder email, like just reply to your previous email. That might-
Yes, I'll send it out again. I'll check with you to make sure I have the correct address, but I did get a few back, and so I think it went to everyone.
So it,
11/24 is when it went out.
yeah, and it went to the
Okay.
#groups.io.
It did go out properly, Kathy.
Okay, good. I'll send it out again. Thank you.
Yeah,
But
just-
it was mid-November, so I bet you people maybe got it and have forgotten.
Yeah,
so.
that's why I forgot about it. I'm sorry. Yeah, too long. Yep. Thanksgiving and Christmas.
In many holidays.
Yeah. That's why. Okay, I also wanted to say really quickly on that note, thank you very much to everybody who replied to my student who sent that survey. I think he got like 25 to 30 responses within 24 hours, which was really cool.
That's in.
Yeah.
Maybe he should send out my survey.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's more responses than I got about whatever survey I put out. I think.
I don't know. There's something wrong here, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. On that note, a couple of you, Michael Tucker, I think, and maybe Jack, I might want to talk to you guys because he said he wants to send that out to a couple other clubs. So I might have to contact you guys about that. So be looking for an email from me. All right, any other announcements real quick? All right, without further ado, we can get started with
Cool.
the main part of the program.
All right. For our main speaker tonight, we are joined by DAS's very own Sheila Vincent. She is going to be sharing a talk entitled Dragons, Damsels, and Demons, Tales of the Night Sky. So Sheila, take it away. The blurb that you sent about the talk sounds really cool, so.
Well, I hope it proves to be so. All right, let's get the constellation lines on here for a minute. Let's get out of the southwest. Get all the way over to the north, okay. Let's start. Okay, so yeah, what I'm going to do is tell you stories. And that's something that's been done from time immemorial to explain what's going on in the world and to try to understand it. And you might think that nowadays we don't do that. But if you think it's true, we don't look in the sky and see gods and goddesses and demons and tricksters and men and supermen. We see nebulae and galaxies and stars and other worlds and other suns. We tell the stories that science tells. We call things by different names. We use different methods, but we still, in a sense, tell stories. We're going to go away from those stories and a little bit and tell stories from older times. And we're going to start, excuse me, with a story that involves a lot of constellations, but one of the main players.
Could you use a
happens
bottle of
to be
water?
This one.
Bottle
Sorry.
of water? Could you use a bottle of water?
Sure,
Yeah.
thank you. And I'm going to put the pictures up. This constellation we call Cassiopeia. And if you look at the drawing, you'll see she's holding something in her hand. What's she holding in her hand? Can you tell?
A mirror.
It's a mirror. And that's precisely the proper thing to have her picture as holding in her hand, because she was incredibly vain. She was so vain that she made the grave mistake of bragging that she was more beautiful than the Nereids. The Nereids were the sea nymphs, the nymphs of Poseidon. And this angered Poseidon, the god of the sea. It angered him so much that he sent terrible storms, tsunamis, great rolling waves to the coastal kingdom that Cassiopeia and her husband ruled. And things got so terrible that Cassiopeia and her husband Cepheus begged Poseidon to stop, and Poseidon agreed to stop if they would sacrifice their daughter Andromeda to him. And Cassiopeia agreed. And so Andromeda was chained to a rock in the sea, there to be devoured by a monster. And we're going to leave poor Cassiopeia there. And we're going to go across that sea to another place at the same time. There is poor Andromeda, the chained woman. And there she will stay for a few moments because we're going to journey. Thank you for the water. We're going to journey to a Greek island, a small Greek island where lived a king, Acrisius, and his beautiful daughter Danae. Though he had this beautiful daughter, he wanted, like many at that time, wanted a son. And so he went to an oracle and he asked how he would have a son. And the oracle said, "You will never have a son. And worse, your grandson will kill you." Well, of course, this terrified Acrisius. And so the only thing he could think to do, other than outright killing his daughter, was to lock her in a tower. And that he did. That didn't stop her, however, because Zeus came to her in her great beauty, and he gave her a son. And that son she named Perseus. And Perseus grew, was still a child. And when Acrisius came to check on Danae, there he found her with the child Perseus. And again, he was terrified. And again, couldn't bear the thought of actually killing his daughter and his daughter's child, his grandson. He instead locked them in a chest and sent the chest out to sea. And there the chest floated until they were rescued by an old fisherman. And that fisherman took care of them until Perseus grew to be a man. And as he grew, he became very, very strong, and he protected his mother from the king that wanted to have his way with her, as they say. And in order to get rid of Perseus, that king sent him on a quest. He dared him basically to bring the head of Medusa, the Gorgon. Gorgons are hideous. We all have this idea of, oh yeah, they have snakes in their hair, and that's terrible. The real Gorgons were absolutely hideous. They had tusks like boars. They had dragon scales. They had clawed arms. They had tails. And yes, they had black snakes writhing on their heads.
I think Gorgons are featured in that new series Wednesday, based on the Addams Family.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I bet you they won't be as ugly as. the
Correct.
real-
It's actually, I think an attractive young man that happens to, and most of the time he's got like a beanie, a stocking cap on to
Oh,
contain.
hide the snakes.
But there's one, but it's funny, until Sheila mentioned it, they call them Gorgons.
Yeah.
And I had not heard that term. And then here it
Well,
comes again.
And actually, Gorgons are female. They're
Oh.
yes, they're all females. So.
There was like a Star Trek episode where Kirk fights a Gorgon.
Oh no, it's a Gorn.
Oh,
Gorn is like rubber suited lizard guy.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Anyway, we didn't tell Star Trek stories.
Yeah.
All right, so the Gorgons were truly hideous. So ugly, in fact, that a look at them would turn you to stone. This was a problem, obviously. And I'm not going to go through, Perseus had many, many adventures on his way to finding the lair of the Gorgons.
Okay, so Medusa was a individual
She was an
Gorgon.
individual Gorgon.
Okay.
And she had two sister Gorgons, yes.
So she was
yes.
not a Medusa, she was
She was
Medusa,
Medusa,
who was a Gorgon.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Yes. What I will tell you, however, about those adventures is that Perseus happened to meet a man on his journey that had a hat with wings and wings on his feet. That man was yes, or Hermes in the Greek version. Yes. And Hermes gave him a gift, a very important gift. He gave him a sword made of diamond. And that diamond sword could cut through those thick scales of the Gorgons, including Medusa. And in addition to meeting Hermes, he also met Athena, the goddess of wisdom. And Athena too gave him a gift. She gave him the gift of her golden breastplate and told him, look at the Medusa's reflection in the breastplate instead of at Medusa when you go to strike, and you will not be turned to stone. And armed with those two gifts, Perseus went and in search of Medusa. And when he found her, he did as Athena told him. He wielded the diamond sword made by Hephaestus, in fact, the god of the forge. Vulcan would be the equivalent in the Roman mythology. Wielded the diamond sword, cut off Medusa's head, and as her head was cut off, from her dead body sprang the winged horse, Perseus, right? The winged horse, Pegasus. Here's Perseus. I'm going to make the time all weird and turn him around. Don't look, there's Medusa's head right there. Be careful. Oops, sorry. Let's get that out of there. And here is the sea monster, but we're going to go away from the sea monster. Gosh, sorry, I'm turning this really funky there. Let's get back to Andromeda. Move my glasses. Sorry, guys. Right there she is. And there is Pegasus diving down below the horizon right now. There's the winged horse Pegasus. Perseus, the hero, leaped upon Pegasus and flew off with the head of Medusa. And as he was flying across the sea, he noticed a statue, what he thought was a statue in the rocks below. But it was no statue. What was it? It was Andromeda, chained to the rock.
Makes sense.
And once he realized that it was a living person, he dove just in time, because as he dove on Pegasus, up from the sea reared the monster. And just as it was about to devour Andromeda, Perseus scooped her up, flew her off, and finally set her down on an island. And of course, as happens a lot in these sorts of tales, they fell instantly in love and eventually were married. But before they even left that island, Perseus put that head of Medusa down, face down on the seaweed there. And it instantly turned to stone. And that's where the first corals came to be. And as Perseus was flying home with Medusa and Andromeda, being an athletic guy, they stopped at a games like the Olympics type games. And Perseus entered those games. And one of the events in those days was the discus throw. It still exists today. And he threw the discus, and he threw it far, but a gust of wind caught it, and it went into the stands, and it hit someone in the stands and killed them. And that someone was Acrisius, Danae's father, his grandfather. And so that old prophecy came true, that Acrisius would be killed by his grandson. Other than that, Perseus and Andromeda married. Perseus defeated the evil king, and everyone lived happily ever after, except everyone was put in the sky, and everyone was put in a good place in the sky, except Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia was put in a spot that was unfortunate, and that's because she was tied to her throne and doomed forever to circle around and around in the sky. What happened? Okay, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You have to get low enough to get the menu for Stellarium, but not so low.
Gotcha. Thank you. Here she is. I'm gonna do this slowly. She circles around the sky. Round and round. And she's so close to the North Star, get out of there, that she never ever gets any rest below the horizon. Stop that. Stop, I said.
The next one over. That's this.
There we go. Oop, I said the wrong one.
So is that what you meant by a good spot versus a bad spot in the
Yes,
sky?
she's in that terrible spot where she never gets rest. She gets turned upside down every night, forever and ever.
So Sheila, so saving Andromeda was an afterthought of Perseus? I thought that was his goal.
No, it was not.
But they got there, so-
I mean, he saw her by accident. Yeah, yeah. His goal, yeah, his goal was to get the head of Medusa and bring it back and defeat the king that was gonna try to marry and carry off his mother. Yeah. So this story is indicative of something really important. It shows very clearly the awareness of the importance of the North Star, and the awareness of how the stars move. That's something that's been known pretty much forever. Humans have been watching the sky forever. And it's not difficult when you're a sky watcher as part of your life to understand that the stars move around the North Star. Just the very names of what we call Polaris can tell you that the Apache call that star the star that does not walk. They really didn't have a generic word for movement there. You know, you walk, you run, you canoe, whatever. So the star that does not walk. The Navajo called it home star. And revolving man, the Big Dipper to us, and revolving woman, the Little Dipper. Let's get these off now because they're distracting. Revolving man and revolving woman go around and around home star. They're basically first man and first woman. So home star, the star that does not walk, the eye of the creator is what the Poma call that star. Sky chief, the Wisaniga call it sky chief. And I think my favorite though of all those names, and they're all ancient names, is the pivot of heaven. And that's the old Chinese name. And they say that that pivot is circled by this, the emperor's chariot. And the emperor's chariot drags all the stars around that pivot. So that's been known and indicated and illustrated by those old stories. There's also, though, this group of stars, and I'm going to take everything off of this. There's a story about this group of stars that illustrates sort of a different way of looking at the sky. And it's an indigenous American story. It's from the Cheyenne people. And they say, most indigenous stories start with they say. They say that long ago there was an old chief. And though he was old, he was very, very strong still and a powerful hunter. And one day, indeed, he was out hunting and he brought down an enormous elk. And of course, he cleaned it, he skinned it, he brought back the meat, he brought back the skin, and he stretched that great skin out on a series of posts so that it would dry. And once that skin was dry, he took up that skin in his two arms and he began to spin. And he spun and he spun faster and faster and faster and faster. And finally, he flung the skin into the sky. And this, we can't see the elk skin. What we see is the holes from the posts where the light from Skyland shines through. So we see they see negative space in a way. Just the holes. I love that.
I'm sorry, what holes are they?
They are the holes from the posts that the chief was drying the skin. The elk skin on. And
It's interesting how the people of yesteryear saw the stars so much and then had the imagination to make up some stories to show what they saw as forms up there. But then again, when there's no light, years ago when there was no light pollution, at nighttime about the only thing they could see was the sky and the darkness. And they went to bed or went, when it was like nighttime, they went either to bed or whatever, and they woke up at sunrise because there was no entertainment or whatever. And so they saw the stars so much that, when it's darker than dark, it's like really the sky really lights up.
Yeah,
and it
exactly.
Draws their attention.
Exactly, exactly. In fact, there's a story that'll sort of illustrate that in a way that concerns this group of stars that we know of as the Big Dipper. But that actually many cultures and many indigenous Americans think of it as a bear. And
Yep.
indeed, this story concerns a bear too, a bear that was being hunted by 3 hunters. And the bear did everything it could to get away from those hunters. It ran through the rivers, up hills, down hills, through forests and meadows and swamps and marshes. And finally, in his desperation, the bear ran up a huge mountain and leaped off the mountain. But the hunters, the 3 hunters, leaped off at the same time and shot their arrows just as the bear leaped and killed the bear. They all remained in the sky, however. The bear and the 3 hunters. And they say that when the bear is low in the sky in the fall, he's usually low for the amount of the time that most people are seeing the sky, that the blood from his arrow wounds drips down and can hit the earth. And that is what turns the leaves red in the fall. And these 3 hunters, of course, the middle hunter, no, we don't need to put that on, but let's just, we all know that the middle hunter is not 1, but 2. So that middle hunter, this is the hunter's dog. It's his little hunting dog named Hold Tight. Actually,
Is that naked eye separable?
Yeah.
It
well,
is, okay.
yes, and in fact, that's what that illustrates just how dark the skies were. It was obviously 2 stars in the times when these stories were told, when they were.
They can tell.
It was very easy to distinguish.
Is there
2 of them.
Definitely wearing glasses.
Right.
Yeah, they're both doubles.
Yes, they're, yeah, both doubles. That's exactly right.
So
And,
the designation Ursa Major doesn't come from the Americas traditions, right? Or
No, no, Ursa Major's. Ursa is Latin for bear.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I guess what I'm getting at is, it seems like a weird coincidence that these disjointed, unconnected, all saw bears
Well,
in.
yes.
I mean,
but
what
the
takes a
thing-
big stretch of imagination to see a bear?
See, the thing is, first of all, okay, I'll show you in a second, but this star, Alcor means the neglected one in Arabic. And
Arabic, right.
Great name. Let's back out here. And again, you have to remember that. Let's get the, keep going too low, sorry, guys.
No, I guess we could just go full screen, right, Rob?
Probably.
Yeah, why don't you-
Double click at the
Why
top.
don't you make it full screen, Sheila? That'll make your life easier. So go down to the bottom bar and hit, see, go over to the left, two buttons, that right?
This
That-
guy?
yeah, then you'll be in comfortable
Seems like that.
territory.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
Oh, and she's still there too.
seems like we're.
Yeah.
Ooh, how exciting. Okay, so when you look at the entire constellation, the way H.A. Ray draws them, here's the bear's nose, and there's his feet, and there's his long body, and it's drawn on here with a tail, which is really stupid, but we all know that those are hunters.
Mm.
So it's okay. So yeah, so it looks much more like a bear when the follow the dots is done like it is right here.
Sure.
And again, it would look much more like a bear.
But it'd have to be really, really dark skies for those lines to show up, right?
And the label.
It's really dark.
Could I interject for a second?
I think we have a question coming through.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is Mike Tucker. Thank you very much. I've learned an awful lot already. I just wanted to mention a few things. Back to your story about Andromeda and Perseus and Cepheus, so forth and so on. There's two separate movies, both called Clash of the Titans. The earlier one with a very young Harry Hamlin from LA Law fame, 1981 time frame.
Yeah.
And then
I've
of
seen
course, Clash of the Titans with Sam Worthington from the Avatar fame. They both tell that story very, very well, of course, with a lot of license thrown in, artistic license thrown in. But I would definitely recommend watching those two movies to learn a lot more. And of course, there's a lot of different books that also tell the tales. Burnham's Celestial Handbook, so forth and so on. Also, somebody mentioned about the Americanization of Ursa Major. Most people may or may not know this story. And since you have it up on the screen right here, besides the Big Dipper, which by the way, it always gets me very upset when on Jeopardy they call the Big Dipper a constellation rather than an asteroid.
Yeah.
And I've seen that twice on Jeopardy so far throughout my life. But if you also look at the diagram, it looks like a plow, and the reason for that is the slaves going through the Underground Railroad from the south to the north of slave slavery would follow the Big Dipper north to find its way through the Underground Railroad and into Canada.
Yep. And in fact, the Brits call this the plow.
Mhm.
And actually the Norse call this man's wagon and this woman's wagon.
Ah, didn't know
They
that.
do look like that too, yeah.
Because I guess I'm especially interested in, connections between, the ancient America, what is now called the Americas. Because I mean, we're talking peoples that were separated 20, 30,000 years ago.
Yep.
And it makes one scratch one. I mean, like the pyramids, how, why are the pyramids in these two very
Such
separated
disparate
places?
Yeah.
And then, why did these two
Well-
completely disconnected groups see bears?
Well,
Pyramids are there because that's the easiest way.
Exactly.
To stack stuff without them falling down.
Right.
Yeah. Not only did they
Either way.
not only did they see them, basically the history is written down from the Babylonians, the Greeks to the Arabs that the young lady mentioned here, which when the Greek dynasty, basically, collapsed, the Arabs took over and thankfully kept all the records. And we mostly got a lot of our records from them.
It's mostly Western.
yeah, and there, I'm moving over to the southern part of the sky, or so, because there's a couple of very different views of things and a couple of very same views of things. As far as different goes, I'm gonna again take the lines and the labels off, because this group of stars that we know of as the Hyades, the Norse call that wolf's mouth. And it does look a bit, in fact, the Navajo also call this just mouth. This, though, is a very special.
Like that V-shaped
wolf's
group,
mouth.
is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This is Fenrir, the huge Norse mythology is really complicated. I'm not going to get into a whole lot, but there's some pretty cool. It's also very grim. Very, very grim. It's beautiful, but it's very grim. So Fenrir is a huge wolf that became so dangerous that some of the gods, the Aesir or the Norse gods, tricked him into having himself chained to a rock. And they constructed the chains such that when he struggled and moved, it just made the chains tighter. And there he will be. They say he chases the sun around the sky, but he'll never catch it until the end of the world, until Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, the last great battle. And then he will break his chains and he will eat the sun. and plunge the world into darkness. And here, in this space,
It's got a better chance of catching Mars.
yeah, very good chance of getting Mars. In this space is where that last great battle will take place. This is the battlefield of the Aesir, so-called, where Ragnarok happens, where the frost giants, the ancient frost giants, and the Norse gods have their final battle. And Ragnarok means twilight of the gods. The gods lose the battle. It's one of the very few mythologies in the world where it's kind of the good guys lose. The gods get, in fact, Odin, the All-Father, the highest of the gods, gets eaten by Fenrir. So it's not a good outcome in the Norse way of thinking about what's going to happen at the end of the world at the end times.
So the end of the world is right to the left of Capella?
Pardon me?
The end of the world is right to the left of Capella?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. In that whole little space. So watch out.
I guess the extreme,
In there.
I guess the extreme cold doesn't lead to the happiest of thoughts, so.
Apparently not. Apparently not. The mythology is wonderful, though. It's really interesting. And,
May I ask where you got your information on all the Norse mythology? Books wise?
there's some books that are compilations of Norse stories. Neil Gaiman, who's done just brilliant novels and stuff, also has done a compilation of Norse stories. But there are the oldest places you can find this stuff are the two Eddas, the prose Edda and the poetic Edda, and I dearly love both of those, and that's where that's sort of the primary source for me and for anyone, I guess. But there are loads of books, but I would recommend Neil Gaiman's because he doesn't embellish, he doesn't try to modernize, he just straight tells the stories. And
Is that Gayman? Gaiman.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
Oh, you are very welcome.
You're talking nonfiction?
That is
Because
nonfiction. Yeah.
Neil Gaiman also writes a lot of,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we're talking about-
He created Sandman.
okay.
So all those graphic novels and stuff, that's Neil Gaiman.
And there's like something in Gods or what's,
American Gods.
yeah, okay.
Oh, God, that's a great book.
Okay.
Absolutely great book.
Yeah.
All his.
I didn't realize he did nonfiction. That's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. That's the only nonfiction I know of, though, that he wrote. And I grabbed it because it was him.
Yeah.
So I had to do it.
Wait, so Nordic mythology is nonfiction?
No, no. Yes, that's the way things are really gonna happen.
Yeah.
I moved us over to the southern sky because of this group of stars. And Jeff, you were talking about how so many people see the same thing. So many people see the same thing in a group of stars. This group that we call Orion is seen by many cultures as a man, a very powerful man usually, but definitely as a man. The Irish called him the armed king. In fact, the Chinese say he was a powerful king that had a battle with his brother for the land. The Navajo called him First Slender One, and he's drawn by them sort of skinnier than we have him in our drawings, in our Follow the Dots. The First Slender One, when he rises in the early morning hours, he tells the Navajo people that that's time to start planting. So he's an important sign, but he is in fact a man. The Tewa people call him Long Sash, and he does have a long sash
Start
there.
to plant or start to harvest, because Orion would come up early September is when he's up.
Yeah, to Harvard, I'm sorry, yes, sorry about that, yes, thank you. Yeah, Tewa, call him Longsash, and Longsash was a hero of their people and led them to freedom from their captivity. There are lots of cultures too that don't even see this as an entire constellation, but rather pieces, like like North Africans see this as lion eyes staring at three zebras.
You have to understand too, in Africa, it'd be that
It's the other, it's upside down.
Yeah.
Yep. The Chinook people of the Pacific Northwest say that there's a canoe here and a canoe here. So two canoes, and they are racing to catch a salmon, which is right here. So, again,
Obviously.
right, you know.
Really hungry.
The Maya, well, the Cherokee call this smoking star. We all know that smoking star is, in fact,
Yeah.
Orion Nebula. And yes, it would be.
Well, I'm always
very
playing so you can see it, but
Very clear that there's, in the Maya call this Said and Rigel, and then up to Alnitak, those three, that is primordial fire. So right embedded in those three indeed is really kind of literally primordial fire, because it is a place of intense energy and the actual birth of stars there. So
is it the Orion Nebula or Andromeda that you say you can see naked eye?
you can definitely see.
I mean, you can see both.
You can see-
In modern skies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And certainly this you can see, Of course, the story that, and the appellation that we are familiar with for this constellation is indeed Orion. Sorry. Did the wrong thing. And there it is in full regalia. You can see that Orion was a hunter, a very, very powerful hunter, in fact. As a bristling with weapons here, he's got a club in his hand. He's got a sword in his belt. He's got a lion skin that he uses for a shield, because this is equated with the Nemean lion that Hercules had to kill.
Yeah.
And the problem with the Nemean lion was that his skin was so tough that arrows couldn't pierce it. So Hercules, or Orion in this case, had to strangle the lion. So he killed it with his bare hands. So he's got this lion skin that just shows how strong he is. And it's no wonder he's the son of our old friend Poseidon and a huntress, an Amazon named Herele. So he's a demigod. He's half god, half man. So very, very strong. And he's got some powers, obviously, from his mother is the hunting, and from his father, we'll see. And being this strong, great hunter, he came to the attention of the goddess of the hunt, Artemis. And once Artemis laid eyes on him, she fell in love. This was a problem. And it was a problem not for her so much, but for her brother Apollo, the sun god. Apollo knew that if Artemis and Orion were to be together, Artemis would lose her powers. And Apollo would not have that in his family. And so he decided to get rid of Orion. He knew that in addition to being a big guy, he had a big ego. And so Apollo decided on a plan. And he watched, and he waited, and he watched, and he waited, And one day when Artemis was in a far part of the world, he came to Orion and challenged him. He knew that Orion, with his big ego, bragged that he could kill any animal. And so Apollo put up his challenger, an animal that he said would best Orion. Does anyone know what that animal is?
Hydra.
Say again?
Hydra.
That would be a really good idea. You should have thought of that. Say again?
Towards the bull.
No, ooh, that's also an
Oh, you're
interesting
right
idea.
Smack him in the head.
Yeah, he's in the right spot.
How about that rabbit?
It's gonna stop it. It's actually nothing, none of these guys. It's actually
Leo the lion.
it's a scorpion.
Ah, and there's.
That's why they're the opposite sides.
Scorpion,
Yeah.
yes. And Orion, of course, thought this was ridiculous. He laughed at it. He thought it would be absolutely no problem. And so they began their battle by the sea. And Orion, though he struck mighty blows, that little scorpion was very quick and very clever. And he'd just dance out of the way. And so they had to keep this up for hours. And finally, Orion realized he was getting tired. And not only that, but he might actually lose. And so he decided to run away. And that he was about to do. And that's where what he inherited from his father came into play. His father, the god of the sea, Poseidon, gave him the gift of being able to walk, or in this case, run on water. And so Orion turned to flee onto the sea, and just as he turned, the scorpion struck, stung him in the heel, and killed him there on the sand. And of course, when Artemis found him, she was devastated. But she decided at least she could honor Orion by putting him in the sky, and that she did. Well, Apollo was not going to be outdone, and so he decided to put his champion in the sky as well, Scorpion. But Artemis had the last word. She made sure that Apollo had to put his champion as far away as he possibly could from her champion, Orion. And that's why to this day, as you said, you can't see the Scorpion and Orion in the sky at the same time. Let's find that Scorpion. We're gonna get. Let's just go to August. Sorry, I keep hitting that. There it is. Yep, and he is actually, here's another, he's seen by the Sumerians as a scorpion too. But not all cultures see him that way, happily. Much gentler cultures. Let's you know what, let's get rid of everything here. Yeah. The Javanese call this group of stars leaning coconut tree, which just really makes sense and culturally makes a great deal of sense as well.
Let's see, like, I would even find it coincidence that they cluster the same. I mean, the division between constellations is also arbitrary.
Yes, it is.
And not
however,
obvious.
Well, I think it's maybe more obvious than we would think that some of those shapes are maybe so embedded in the subconscious and in the subconscious of humans that they get plastered onto the sky. I mean, we're such pattern loving creatures.
Pattern recognition animals,
Want
right?
to see patterns everywhere, and I think that there are some patterns that are probably in there somehow that we be and many times because there are things that we have experience with. The leaning coconut tree, I mean, that group of stars, if you're a Polynesian, you're surrounded by that sort of thing. And of course, you look in the sky and you see this group of stars. It's not that low for them, but looks like a leaning coconut tree. And it also, the other Polynesians, you're probably maybe familiar with the god Maui. Maui is maybe not the smartest god in the pantheon, but maybe the strongest. And Maui might not be real smart, but he's very happy-go-lucky. The thing he loved most in all the world was to fish. And one day, that's what he was doing. He was sitting out on a rock in the middle of the ocean and he was fishing. And he had his line in, and after a while, he felt a little tug on his line, so he pulled some more, and he pulled some more. Now remember, this guy's really strong. He's the strongest guy going. He pulled and he just couldn't get this fish out. And he thought, this has to be the biggest fish in the universe. I can't wait to get this thing out. And he finally pulled up the Hawaiian Islands.
There you go.
I love that story, not only because it's a lovely story in itself, but also because it indicates that those islands did indeed rise from the sea. They weren't just there. They rose from the sea for sure. And Maui did it.
Question. That particular character, is that the one that's kind of represented in that movie called Moana, or I can actually pronounce the movie,
Yes.
the Disney film? Right.
Yes, I haven't seen the movie, but yes.
Yes,
He's
very
portrayed
good
as
movie.
a very strong, kind of,
Right,
Okay.
fisherman.
maybe I guess you'd even say a bit
Happy-go-lucky, right,
happy-go-lucky.
absolutely, yep,
That's good. That's the way they should have done it.
right, great, thank you.
I mean, voiced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So.
That's right, yep,
Yeah.
North Rockton.
Okay.
know.
While we're here, many cultures, there are many mythologies, I should say, have a trickster character. Somebody that's, not a bad guy, not a good guy, just trouble, an agent of chaos. If you are familiar with Norse mythology or with the Marvel universe, then Loki is a great example of that. With many indigenous Americans, that character would be Coyote. Coyote is trouble. He's out for his own self-interest. Nevertheless, the creator one day had all the animals come together because he told them that they could make pictures of themselves in the sky. And he laid all the stars out on a big blanket. And all the animals began to pick out stars and put them in the sky in their shapes. But they started to get tired, especially the little animals. It was heavy work. And so the creator, unfortunately, asked Coyote to help them, to help the little animals. And for a while, Coyote was doing his job and helping the little animals, but Coyote being Coyote started to get bored and frustrated and impatient. And he finally just took that big blanket and he just threw all the stars out. And that's why we have the Milky Way. And that's why there is no coyote picture in the sky. He forgot to make himself one. He also, being a show-off, one thing he loved to do was show off for the ladies. And one of the ways he loved to show off was to take out his eyeballs and juggle them. And one day, that's what he was doing. He was juggling his eyeballs and he was getting a great response. So he kept juggling them higher and higher and higher and higher. And finally one went so high that it stuck in the sky. And this is Coyote's eyeball. Yeah, and that's a, oh boy, it's a perfect coyote's eyeball because it's that vivid orange, bright orange. So it's a good one for that.
Did he get the other one back?
I guess not. It's still there in the sky.
Osiris got it.
The other one that he's juggling. I suppose, I think so. Yeah, and I think he probably contrived to get that one back too, because in most of his stories, he's got both his eyes. Sometimes he's in some trouble with them, but he's all right. That's a fun one to end on. So that's, I think, where we'll end this, unless, do you guys have questions or anything?
Yeah, again, as a reminder, obviously, any people in Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself and for any questions or comments. As well as, we don't have to unmute ourselves.
Comment again. Thank you very much. I've learned an awful lot. I'm going to start reading a couple more books, especially on the north side. I did my ancestry very recently. I have 8% Nordic ancestry, and I'm very interested in that, tying into my astronomy side. Also wanted to mention for people that when you're back on Orion itself, of course, the 3 belt stars, which I'm very impressed that you know the names of them. A lot of people don't. The pyramids in Egypt are aligned to those particular stars. Then, of course, the Egyptians, the North Star, of course, was Thuban back in the day, rather than Polaris, of course. You know, and you got to follow the precession of the equinoxes to understand how that works.
Right.
And the fact that it's Polaris now, and eventually it'll be Vega, and then back to Thuban again. You know, long time from now.
Yeah, and in fact, and thank you for saying that, because I failed to mention that. Yes, in fact, at the time that some of these stories were told, in fact, perhaps early enough that the Andromeda Cassiopeia story was told, Polaris was not the North Star, because it was a couple of thousand years ago. It would have been Caucasus probably. So I mean, she's still circumpolar even back then. That's not that far away. Oh, well, Caucasus wouldn't be exactly where North would be, but close enough. That would be the closest way to, yeah. So yeah.
And another Indian tale, American Indian tale, of course, it has to do with the Pleiades. When they took their children of the tribe, they had them look at the Pleiades, and if they saw so many stars, they were a scout, and they didn't see as many stars, they were some type of worker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the eye test was Alcor. Yeah.
Right, that was another test, right, for Alcor Mars, put the double, right?
Yep. It should work. A little hunting dog, you can see it, you're good.
That's very nice.
All right, guys.
Thank you. That was great. And you said that this is a good time to stop, which makes me think that you have a lot more. So hopefully you'll do this again.
Yeah. Part 2.
Sure, I'd love to.
I wanted to ask, for a given culture, or a given mythology, pick one. Is these various constellations and asterisms, is there only one story for each, or are they characters that are in a
That's a
number?
great question, and the answer is no. There can be multiple stories for, no, and in some cases, yes, but like let's pick on the Norse, what we call Auriga, and they call the battlefield of the gods. That's, as far as I know, that's the only story concerned with that particular star group.
So Andromeda, for example, chained to the rock in the river. Is that her only, in that mythology, is that her only story, or are there other stories that involve Andromeda where she's doing something else? She's going to the grocery store.
Well, basically, yes, because there are stories about Andromeda and Perseus after their marriage and the children they had, and and what happened with their children. So yes, those stories all continue on and on. Yes, yes, yes.
So it's just a palette of characters that appear in a lot of different episodes.
Yeah.
Drumming and her friend on the chocolate assembly line, trying to.
Yeah, and then you also have the Greek. Yeah.
I wonder if there's any,
Knows Lucy.
I'm sure that there's something to this, but like in languages, different linguists have, I don't know anything about this, I'm saying more than I know. But when there's similar words for things or similar sentence structures, that is some evidence that those cultures sort of interacted or shared the same land mass for some time before the continent, whatever. I wonder if that's true for constellation stories also.
Yes.
That's a great thought. That seems plausible, certainly. Yeah.
Because the current understanding is that the indigenous peoples crossed over the land bridge, which is 30,000 years ago, right? Isn't that the going
Right,
story?
right.
Yeah, from
So that's a lot of time.
From Russia.
Big
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly.
Yeah, it's good, and those certainly could be shared and evolve and branch off and. Yeah, so
Do-
there's pieces.
Do all the
of it.
mythologies put their gods and characters in patterns in the sky, or do some of them do it differently?
Boy, I'm trying to think of ones that don't,
Most.
And
because boy,
I'm curious to go to the Polynesians. Where's Pele? Okay.
yeah,
example.
I'm sure Pele's up there. I don't know where
soccer player?
Pele is there. Yes.
He's a god for a lot of people.
That's too recent.
He just recently died.
Yes,
so
it
maybe-
is. It's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed that 150 years ago, the brightest skies we've ever seen, we're just so thrilled to see. Yet, up until 150 years ago, every human that looked up in the sky saw this just amazing skies.
Can you imagine?
Amazing from our perspective.
That at the
Right.
times that some of these stories were created, there was no ambient light, virtually no ambient light. Even 150 years ago, there was something, but almost not even in walled cities and stuff. There was just nothing.
And everybody saw
It's-
those
it
same
must have been
skies.
unimaginable.
How could you not make up stories?
Yeah, you were surrounded by the sky. You couldn't.
Yeah,
help know it.
the skies were their entertainment and their way to follow the seasons and when to plant their crops and when to do all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
And as I mentioned before, they were pattern recognition animals, which is what humans are, and they always, but it was also interesting to me, and I just saw a show about this today about the cave paintings in, I think it's called Le Sauve, France. It was basically all about animals, but I wonder why we don't see cave paintings of astronomical type, constellations in cave paintings. I have not come across that as of yet.
Think that would be
maybe
really
syndicated
I
in
think they
France.
sort of needed them because they were right there in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And
There's some thinking that there are some astronomical drawings in caves in Mexico. And some of the earlier cave dwelling people from that long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the, Mayans and Aztecs and the Pueblo peoples and all their petroglyphs are full of.
Yeah, but
various-
they're relatively recent.
Yeah, true,
Right.
compared to Lascaux, we absolutely.
Right.
Impossible to know, but it would be kind of curious to know how many thousand years ago people really started to, pay it. Because we only have the slightest glimpse of history from
Right.
3,000 years ago.
Yep.
Back beyond that, we got, our only evidence are bones and crude, we just have no clue
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
what people were up to. People just like us 30,000 years ago. We don't have the faintest clue what they were up to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds crazy, and I have to follow up on this, but I heard a talk that just blew my mind because it was talking about, it wasn't Moscow, but it was another set of cave paintings, and the archaeologist that was investigating them realized he decided, because he realized something, he lit a fire in there. I don't know how he got permission to do this. And he realized the flickering of the fire made the figures appear that they were moving. So we essentially made a movie.
Mhm.
So in the fire, well, so it appears that those paintings were made to appear to move when the fire flickered. Interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway,
When the Crab Nebula exploded as a supernova, I think it was 1050.
1066.
The Chinese recorded it.
Mhm.
yep.
And the crescent moon was not far from that position of the sky at the time they made those records. Well, it was visible. Out in the southwest, there are some cave paintings on the wall that show a bright star right next to a crescent moon.
Perfect.
And the supposition is that the people at that time, about 1,000 years ago there, put that on the wall.
Documenting.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool.
All right, guys.
Well, Sheila, I want to thank you a bunch.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
If there are
much.
no final questions or comments, there are refreshments for those of us in person. Again, for those on Zoom, check your fridge and
Grab a beer.
stay tuned at the next DES event.
I'll have a
night,
beer.
everyone.
I'll have a beer with you guys.
Right on. Rob, I'll let you settle that.
I'll take care of it.
I'm always afraid I'll screw it up.
Yep. Everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Night.